Some words leave bruises you cannot see. They don't land on your skin. They land somewhere deeper, somewhere that takes years to heal, if it ever heals at all. And the worst part about those words is not that a stranger said them. The worst part is that they came from the one person whose voice you trusted above every other voice in the world. My name is Diana. I am 36 years old. And the word that changed everything, the word that broke me open and then slowly rebuilt me into something stronger than I had ever been, was spoken by my husband on a Tuesday evening in our kitchen. You're a failure, Diana. Everything you touch falls apart. He said it casually, the way you'd comment on the weather, like it was simply a fact he had grown tired of not saying out loud. I remember the exact moment. I was standing by the counter, holding a cup of tea that had gone cold. I had just told him about losing the freelance contract I had been working on for 3 months, the one I had built from nothing, the one I had stayed up past midnight crafting proposals for, the one that had finally started to feel like proof that I was capable of more than what our life had shrunk me down to. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask how I felt. He just said those words, picked up his phone, and walked out of the room. I stood there for a long time. I didn't cry. Not immediately. I just stood there with my cold tea and the particular silence that follows something that cannot be unsaid. Let me take you back a little, because to understand what happened next, you need to understand who I was before Marcus. Before I married him at 27, I was a graphic designer with a growing portfolio and a hunger for something extraordinary. I had clients across 3 cities. I had won a regional design award that my mother still has framed in her hallway. I had plans, real, specific, beautiful plans for a creative studio of my own. But Marcus had a way of making my ambitions feel inconvenient. Slowly, quietly, over 8 years of marriage, he replaced my confidence with doubt. Every failed project became evidence of my inadequacy. Every setback became proof of his theory about me. And somewhere along the way, I started to believe him. That is the most painful part of this story. Not what he did, but how long I let his voice become louder than my own. Until that Tuesday evening in the kitchen. Because something shifted in me when he walked out of that room. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, firmly, permanently. I put down the cold cup of tea. And I made a decision. The next morning I woke up before Marcus. I sat at the small desk in the corner of our bedroom, the one he always called cluttered, the one I always called mine, and I opened my laptop. I didn't have a plan yet, but I had something I hadn't felt in years. Anger, clean, clear, focused anger. Not the kind that screams, the kind that builds. I went back through every project I had abandoned in the last 3 years. Every client I had let go because Marcus complained the work was taking too much of my time. Every proposal I had started and quietly closed because his voice in my head told me it wasn't worth finishing. There were 11 of them. 11 beginnings I had given up on. I opened the most recent one, a branding project for a small women's wellness company called Selene. I had done 6 hours of work on it before I stopped. The founder, a woman named Priya, had emailed me twice asking if I was still interested. I had never replied. That morning I replied, Priya, I am so sorry for the delay. I would love to continue if the opportunity is still open. I will have a full concept board to you within 5 days, she replied within 20 minutes. Diana, I was hoping you'd come back. Let's do this. I worked in secret for the next 4 weeks. Every morning before Marcus woke up, every lunch break, every evening after he fell asleep in front of the television. I worked with a focus I had forgotten I possessed. I worked like a woman who had something to prove not to the world, but to herself. But here is where the betrayal deepened. 2 weeks into the project, I discovered something that reframed every year of my marriage in a single moment. I was looking for a printed receipt in Marcus's desk drawer, something mundane, something domestic when I found a folder. Inside it were emails, printed emails, between Marcus and my former business partner, a man named Joel, dated 4 years ago. They had sabotaged my first studio attempt together. Joel had fed Marcus information about my client pipeline. Marcus had used it to quietly discourage those clients. A word in the right ear here, a casual undermining comment there. My studio had collapsed in its first year, and I had blamed myself completely. I had carried that failure like a stone around my neck for 4 years. It had been manufactured. I sat on the floor of that study for a long time. The grief was enormous, but underneath the grief something harder, something that did not need to cry, something that simply needed to act. I photographed every page of that folder. I forwarded everything to my personal email. I put the folder back exactly as I had found it, and I walked back to my desk. I had 5 days until the Solemn presentation. I spent every one of them building the best work of my life. The Solemn presentation changed everything. Priya didn't just approve the concept. She referred me to 2 other founders in her network within the same week. Within 6 weeks of that first email, I had 3 active clients, a renewed portfolio, and a business registration for my studio filed quietly under my maiden name. I said nothing to Marcus. I just kept working, keep showing up, kept building. The moment of reckoning came on an ordinary Saturday morning. Marcus had a golf weekend with colleagues including Joel. I had known about it for weeks, and I had spent those weeks making sure that one particular person would also be at that club. Priya's husband, it turned out, sat on the board of the city's most prominent business development council, a council that was currently reviewing a commercial contract that Marcus's firm had been pursuing for 2 years. A contract worth more than Marcus earned in 5 years combined. I had not arranged anything dramatic. I had simply mentioned things to the right people at the right time, the way Marcus had once done to me. The council reviewed the evidence of Marcus and Joel's conduct 4 years ago, shared through proper channels, with documentation, and withdrew the contract consideration entirely. Marcus came home from that golf weekend a different colour. He didn't know it was me, not immediately, but when he sat across from me that Sunday evening and said, very quietly, someone reported Joel and I to the council. I looked at him with the most peaceful expression I have ever worn in my life. That's unfortunate, I said, and I went back to my sketchbook. He knew. I could see it in his face, but he had no proof, and more importantly, he had nothing left to hold over me. Because the woman who had believed his words was already gone. She had walked out quietly the same night he called her a failure and left someone else in her place. I filed for divorce 3 months later, calmly, without drama, with a lawyer who had been recommended by Priya. My studio, Threadline Creative, now has 4 full-time clients and a waiting list. My mother still has that award on her wall, but now there is something beside it. A photograph she framed herself. It is a picture of me at my studio desk, laughing at something off camera. She told me it is her favourite photo she has ever taken of me. You look like yourself again, she said. Here is what I want you to carry for my story. The people who call you a failure are often most afraid of what you would become if you ever stopped believing them. So stop believing them. Do the work in the quiet. Build in the dark. Let them think they won. Because the most powerful thing you will ever do is succeed in a voice so calm they never even hear it coming.